It's episode 47. It's so confusing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Hello, and welcome to episode 47 of the Foam News Collective podcast. I'm KT. I'm here with Vile. We're so thrown off because normally we record the podcast before the episode comes out, and then it comes out the day after. It is currently Monday after episode 47 came out, and it just feels like everything's upside down. And we only have 2 episodes left this year, which is wild, right, Vile? Like,
it's already there. Good Lord. An
entire 2 years of Nerf news, of hobby news. How does it feel to be finishing that up? How do you...
It's weird because it feels like it hasn't been that long, but also that it's been very long. Yeah. I don't know how else to explain. It feels like we've done a lot, yet somehow it hasn't been actually 2 years. I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a little bit surreal. I say we have 2 episodes left. We're planning on doing 48 and 49. I have been trying to finagle this year to start next year on episode 50. I just think that's cool.
Yeah.
So I believe that is going to happen. Our last episode will be a little bit later in the month than we normally do it, but I think we're going to make it like a recap episode. TBD. But part of why we're recording funky is because we've been going back and forth on the scheduling, but I'm really, really excited to have a special guest, Adam Gelder, aka Band Blasters, designer and an engineer on the podcast today to talk with us. Adam, how are you doing today? How's the beginning of the holiday season treating you?
Let's just say I hope it doesn't continue like this. Like we mentioned earlier, I've got 2 sick kids. Everyone's home from school. It's just a lot right now. So
yeah, I feel that. My kids just started their vacations, which is their vacation for sure. Not so much ours, right?
No.
But this is a busy. Well, I guess in your line of work, a lot of things that maybe you've been working on, this is kind of when you're used to things coming out and people getting them as gifts maybe, and them starting to appear in people's hands and reviews and stuff appearing. I don't know if that sort of impacts your perception of this season. It's like... do you ever? I'm gonna ask you a bunch more about your design history and things you may have worked on that we might recognize. But do you ever have that experience of like your kids asking for something you worked on, and having to?
Yeah, or like now that they're like of the age where they're watching like YouTube videos and stuff, they'll see something and I'll be like, oh, I made that. It's just like, like my oldest son will run up to me and be like, Dad, did you see this spitball shooter? And I'm like, yeah, I made it. Like he's just like, what? And so, yeah, it's kind of funny. It's unique.
Well, and so to that effect, would you give us some background on your professional work?
Sure.
How you got into blaster design specifically, but also just what other kind of toy work you've done, any products we might recognize in the past that you've worked on. Give the folks some context who might not be familiar with that side of the business.
So before I did this, before I worked for NSI, I was working for a company called Ray Kemper Invention and Design, and they are just what started out as just a toy invention company. So we would try to come up with as many ideas as we possibly could. We would make prototypes, and then my bosses, 3 or 4 times a year would have meetings with Mattel or Hasbro or Jack Specific or whoever, pitch the ideas, try to get them to, license something. And then, so that was really all we had to do there was like make a really fantastic prototype that was like bulletproof. If they liked the idea, they kind of would run with it from there.
Oh, okay.
And then probably about 6 or 7 years ago, they started their own toy company, which was Top Secret Toys. Okay. So when they started that, then it was just basically like, whatever the brothers wanted to work on, we would just do. But
so you went from sort of like prototyping stuff to actually bringing them to market.
Yeah, I mean, we'd always make a prototype first, obviously, but then it
Of
would go
course.
over to like China. I'd work with China and, getting it tooling ready and all sorts of other things. Like you just run into so many problems that you just can't even like conceive. It's like, how
Yeah.
is this so hard all of a sudden? I don't know. But, and now we're running into it again. But, yeah, so that I've been in toys for 15 years basically. And, I'm sure you're going to ask me how I met NSI or Frank from NSI.
We're definitely getting there too. We might want to talk about the Band Blasters project first. Kind of go chronologically a little bit, because I guess did you do like blaster related designs at that previous company at all, or
No,
was that
so
sort of a side thing that you were interested in?
they did have a brand called HoverTech, which was like these little flying drones, and you'd shoot them out of the sky with like little foam blasters.
I had one of those. I had one of those kicking around for a while. I think I still have the drone. Yes.
Here's actually, I don't even know if this one actually made it to like shelves, but the other ones looked a little bit different than this, but it was HoverTech. And
Right.
yeah, so you get like one drone or two drones and 2 or 3 blasters. And I've still got some of these kicking around that I just had for the kids.
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely thrifted a couple of those, and I was like, oh, what is this? And then I was like, oh, this blaster is not good. But the drone's cool.
that was just like,
well, yeah, the
we just
idea
would
was never to
source-
make performance blasters. It was just to
No.
like outside, right? Yeah.
we just like sourced a couple different, they'd send us like 3 or 4 different models and we'd play with them and be like, all right, I guess this is what we're doing. It was never focused on the blaster itself.
That's really cool though, to connect that's sort of like a weird side piece of history to our hobby, because I definitely bump into those all the time, and I was like, where do these come from? And now I know they came from y'all.
Came from y'all, yep. And then so at the same time, I was working with a guy named Alex Cook. He was working with me at Ray Kemper, and he's always been into like, let's do a Kickstarter, let's like, he's just like this crazy idea guy. So he's like, hey man, do you think you can make a blaster that's more accurate, faster than what's out there right now? And I was like, wow, I don't know, maybe let's give it a shot. So I spent almost like a year just designing wheels and the spacing and figuring out the RPM and like all different sorts of like concavities, and until I kind of like got to where the Band Blaster wheels are now.
Right.
But once I did it, I was like, okay, we're hitting consistently 200 feet per second. That's faster than anything out there.
Yeah.
So we
with
tried
flywheelers, that was really sort of a new step.
Yeah. So we tried the Kickstarter, and then Kickstarter banned us. So we ended up going with the Indiegogo, and we greatly appreciated everyone's support while that was happening. But it just, I don't think people realize how much money it would actually take to do it. Yeah. And I don't think we did really either. We were just kind of like, just one of these things. We were just kind of like kicking around an idea. But after that happened, then I had all these people from the community being like, why don't you just sell cages for what's out there? And I was like, I guess I could do that. So that's essentially how Band Blasters started.
Yeah.
Started with this guy.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
That's the one.
Yeah, that's the one. And
you backed it too, didn't you, KT?
I did back for one.
I backed. I remember trying, because I was really excited for these, and I remember I backed the one that was like a huge bundle of them. I was looking at like whatever the larger bundles were. It was like 10 of those things or something. I don't remember. It was a lot of them, but I remember backing that because I was really excited for them. And then obviously it didn't get through, but
it didn't pan out. Like, I don't even literally know what Alex like put on there. He did the whole like campaign and the bundles and everything. I was just like, I did my job. You can go.
Right.
But it didn't work out. But you know what? It turned out great, because without him having that idea, I would have never done that. And then none of this would ever be happening. So
who was your partner with? Alex who? Sorry.
Alex Cook.
Alex Cook. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So he was like, originally when this started, everyone kept, when they'd email me or him, they'd be like, hey, Alex, Adam, And after a while, I was like, there really is no Alex. It's just me. So, because he's doing his own thing, and he left the company that we were working for, and we still stay in touch and everything. But
cool.
Bland Blasters has just been me.
And I mean, you've gone on to have a pretty significant impact. Were you the first one to do micro flywheels? No.
No, I'd say like a Nightingale, like all those blasters had them in them, and
right.
then
I guess there were existing products that were already using that sort of form factor. But I mean, just your cages and wheel designs, I think, have had a pretty big influence on where the hobby has gone in that area. And I think that means a lot. What?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it first happened, people were just kind of, that's when I did kind of do Discord for a little while, but then I just had to kind of remove myself from it because this is like 200. That's destroying everything. Like those darts are getting shredded. And I'm like, well, what, it's kind of like, what do you expect
when something new comes out? It's the old thing that HVZ people always said, where it's like high capacity rival is going to destroy HVZ, or like this FPS is going to destroy HVZ, and it's like, no, it won't. Like the meta changes, people will adapt, the technology will change, the technology will adapt, and we get to do and try new things that we haven't tried before, and it's
right.
There's no qualitative limit on that kind of stuff.
Like, you never know how people are going to apply this, whatever it is, whether it's a cage or a blaster or a thing. You never quite understand what they're going to do with it, because sometimes they will do something completely out in left field.
Yep.
And that is one of the most interesting things, is that you might have designed something, for a particular form factor, a particular whatever, and then somebody just for some reason like reinvents everything about it, but somehow uses it as the base, and you're like, I would have never thought of that. And I think that's why I really to me, it's kind of just, you hear it over and over again about how this is going to be this is breaking this, or this isn't good, or this is bad, or this is whatever. And until you actually just let it go out into the wild and see what people do with it, you really don't know. And so many people trying to jump the gun and trying to, come to that quick conclusion of what they think is going to happen is just, you really don't understand. You have no idea how people are going to use these products, or how they're going to use these particular powertrains or whatever it is. You never know. They're going to come up with something just wild sometimes. And that's, I think, the more important thing to watch, is just put it out there and let people do with it as they will.
Yeah. And then, I get my ideas from those people, because I just love to like push the envelope a little bit. I'm like, well,
yeah.
My wife at one point, like during my wheel design, I was like splitting hairs between like, thousandths of an inch here and there. And she's like, for God's sakes, would you just stop? Like it's good enough. Like, cause I was just like kind of going crazy. I got like in this loop. And I was like, yeah, but I might be able to get like another 5 FPS. And she was like, just, it's fine. You're done. Stop. But then, the one cage came out, and then people were like, oh, I need dual stage. I need, 3 stage.
Yeah.
So like, that's like where this beast came from.
Right.
Which, I hit 400 feet per second with it.
Oh my God.
And then people are like, well, yeah, but is it, you're using like a green bamboo dart. They're super light. I'm like, it still hit 400 feet per second.
I'm going to hit 396 FPS. Leave me alone. Come on.
Yeah, I'm like, sorry. It's consistently like 380. So
you and who's the one doing 4 and 5 with Rival that we talked to at Mayhem last year? 3D printed solid. 3D printed solid.
3D printed solid. Yeah, he was the one that his test rig was 5 brushless motors, like cages, like stages. And they were all alternating in 90-degree angles, so that way he could get the flywheels closer to each other.
Yeah,
and it progressively went from a smaller flywheel all the way up to that really large one that he had.
Oh my
God!
It was
and then he hit 400 something with a Rival, and it was like, what is the point? He was just testing it again. It was just a test rig.
I mean, it's like we were talking about with people who do the world record thing where they're at like 530 or something right now. And
Yeah.
it's like, obviously that's functionally useless, but like think about the things that they've discovered and learned in the process of getting to that number. Now you can make other designs more efficient.
Sure.
So all that stuff is useful in one way or another.
Yep.
Right.
So part of the reason we initially connected with you, even though frankly, so much, plenty of the work you are doing is fascinating and interesting to talk about, is that you're now designing for NSI, as you mentioned, and involved in their Siren blaster line. How did you originally connect with them? How did that come together?
So, my last job that I was at, we did some commission work for NSI. I don't know if you're familiar with like the All Pro Passer. It was like a football launcher, kind of had like a bicycle style pump. And it was all robotic. It would move the ball side to side, up and down, and then it would launch it.
Right.
And it would launch them, like 40 yards, so like a pretty good distance.
Wow.
So I'd been working with Frank, he's the owner of NSI, president. And, I never talked to him about blasters or anything, but somehow he caught wind of band blasters and just kind of called me one day out of the blue. He's like, hey, I got an idea. So I was like, all right. And he was like,
okay.
They do Laser X, and he's like, I kind of want to get into, the foam dart business, and I know that you do band blasters. I know that you have the potential to like, put something out there good right away. He's like, are you interested? And I was like, yeah. So, literally during like the whole beginning stages of what you guys see on the, on Siren's website right now, the Blank, the Mauler, and Gnarl, I was working 1 day a week for him and 4 days a week at my old job. And then it just got to a point where, I was like talking with China every night. It just got to be like too much. So I had to call him and be like, look, why don't I just come work for you? So he was friends with my old boss, and, those brothers were kind of, I think they're getting older. I think they kind of are like ready for retirement. So we just kind of all worked it out together, and I slowly just phased over to NSI completely.
Okay.
But like everything that you see right now was designed by two guys that work at NSI, and I basically just took their housings and shoved the guts and mechanisms and stuff.
Right. You did pretty much the internals exclusively, right? And then
I did the internals.
Yeah.
So don't kill me. I knew what was going to be said when they came out, and I tried to make it known, but it just really all happened so fast. And once it got to a certain point of the whole like development, it was just like there's kind of like there's nothing we can do about it now. Like stuff's in tooling.
I mean, that's one of the things that's complicated about making products on this scale is there's so many players involved, right? Like there's multiple designers working, like you were saying, you're doing the internals, other people are doing the externals, and you're working together, but ultimately you're responsible for your own part of the design. And then you have to send those things through layers of however big the company is, which with NSI, I mean, obviously it's not a Hasbro, it's not a giant corporation, but there's still multiple people who are looking like, is this going to be viable, right?
Yeah,
it even then gets.
It is very. It is. I mean, it is small, which is kind of what's great about it, because we don't have a lot of those levels.
Yeah.
Frank's just kind of like, I want something to go super fast. I'm like, okay, I'm like, if you don't have a problem with it, then I definitely don't have a problem with it. So, I think he's willing to like push the envelope a lot more than some of the other companies. I know they're capable of doing stuff, but. He's doesn't care if we hurt people, I guess. It's
well,
like,
I mean, yeah. I guess how does the risk? How does the risk factor change when you're a company of that size? You have less market share, I guess. I don't know. Like that's interesting. I mean, it's exciting. On some level, just to see any company of any size willing to take those kinds of chances.
Right, and that's what I love about them. And I was like, this is going to be, it's going to be talked about. People are going to take notice one way or another, whether they love it or hate it. But, I mean, 280 feet per second out of the box is,
Yeah.
pretty bonkers. And I think that's just, what we're going to continue to try to do. Maybe there's other things like ergonomics and stuff that are going to take more of a forefront
Right.
in where we go in the future.
I mean, that's tough. You have like a company like Busby who've been like mocked for their ergonomics for so long
Notorious.
while doing really interesting stuff for the hobby, and now they're the first company to like license a hobbyist design and put it on the shelf. It's like, it's not so was that kind of the main goal of the design? Was just they wanted big numbers? They just wanted like something
big
to like
numbers,
make a big splash when it appeared?
Yeah, kind of. It was just, it's like, well, if we just come out and we're hitting HVZ speeds or something, it's like,
Yeah.
everyone can do that. Everyone is doing that. So let's just try to put something out there that people will notice. And
Right.
I think it will at least make the brand name Siren, like, when we put out something else, they'll be like, okay, well, what did they do? It's, we made a name for ourselves, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And some people love it, some people hate it. I know there's some issues with some stuff. And so that's like every day I'm trying to like work through all that crap because it's just it's very frustrating. 'Cause it's like the littlest part, causes big problems.
Well, like I know that, Siren stuff has been, I think it hit the market really hard from the hobby perspective. Like,
Yeah.
It worked, saying like this company's putting out stuff that shoots super hard. Immediately, hobbyists, you had the hobbyist attention, right? And then I've talked before about this feeling that like if you advertise things in a way that's really bombastic, you now have to back that up in a way that, but like at a certain point, like maybe you set like a standard that it, like the product's great. There's nothing wrong with the product necessarily, but like if the standard's been set so high, people are definitely going to find its flaws. I mean,
100%.
But again, we're talking about a really limited audience here, right? We're talking about the hobby, which is such a small percentage of the people that you actually hope will buy this. Like this, I found a gnarl at my local Tractor Supply. Like, the hobby is such a sliver of the people actually picking this thing up. What is the intended audience? Like, who does NSI hope is buying these and taking them home?
I mean, I think realistically, probably, the hobbyists, but also just like people like Frank and myself. Like, I've got 3 little boys, and I've got a bunch of buddies who have come over and seen these things, and they're just like, oh, like, wow, like I didn't even know. You're like, oh, my kids have all these Nerf blasters, but they've never seen anything like this because they don't have like a dart zone or anything good. It's just all like Nerf stuff, and they're like, I didn't even know this is amazing. Like, where'd I get one? And I'll be like, well, here, take this one. I got a bunch, but just people that like, I don't know, adrenaline junkie type fathers and kids, because we get so many people that are like, oh my gosh, I've had more fun in my backyard with my kids with this mauler than anything ever. Like, it's like the fact that we can reach each other all the way across the yard is just like phenomenal. So I mean, I would say I knew kind of being in the hobby a little bit. I'm not like you guys are, but I knew the numbers that were on the market. I knew what we probably could achieve, and with Frank's green light, it was just like, well, let's put something out there like really fast and just see who gravitates towards it.
So you had the hobby in mind when you're working on it, but that's not
for sure.
For sure.
And then moving forward, I'm gonna have a lot more to do with like the design of it and the aesthetics and the ergonomics. So moving forward, it's gonna go even more like, what else would you want? Like, I think I know what people are looking for out there, so I'll try my best to push my ideas and get them out there. I might get kicked back here and there, but there's already a lot of things on these that I was like, we need a Picatinny rail, guys, at least. Like, come on, like this is kind of like a standard thing now. So
Yeah.
I don't know, just moving forward, like I have the hobby in mind for sure, and it's basically just like Frank and I. So if I can be like, get in his ear and he says go ahead, then I think we'll continue to make some pretty awesome stuff in the future.
Well, so what's next? Like what are the plans for the next steps for the Siren line?
Well, I talked to Frank. I can't say a whole lot, but I can tell you that we are working on some blasters for younger kids. Okay. And primarily, I mean, I have my 3 little boys, and only Cole, my 7-year-old, can prime a lot of like the blasters that are out there on the market right now. Like it's one of those things where he shoots it, he hands it to dad. I have to prime it, give it back to him. Like, this is really stupid. So, like, this is not fun. I was not, I didn't sign up to play right now. But anyway, so I'm like, that's what I always saw as the biggest problem. So we're working on things to eliminate that issue for kids, but still like get some serious performance out of it. Yeah.
Enough to have a good play experience still.
For sure.
To hit something.
For sure. So, there is the KED testing for like 8+ blasters, which means that the dart has to have a certain kinetic energy density. And so we're working on darts and to see how fast we can get something to go but still meet, safety regulations and stuff. So I don't know. It's all a process, but again, we're going to try to put something out we are going to put something out that is performance based but easy for kids to use, and that's kind of where we're going with that right now.
Okay. Line 2 when I mean you're just starting out with this project, or like something in the next
I am not exactly sure when it would be released. Right now there's prototypes kind of swarming around different distributors and stuff. So
physical objects exist out there. It is.
Yes, physical objects do exist.
Yeah. Cool.
And I'm not sure when it will be released, but that is one thing that we're working on.
All right. I mean, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I think there's sort of a gap in that area. That was a big part of my approach when I first got into the hobby. I still have my own YouTube channel technically, but I haven't updated in a while. I've been so focused on the news thing. But my whole thing was approaching it as a parent, and that's one of the things that I'm always looking at. Is it's like, okay, this is great, and it says this age and up, but like realistically, kids want access to it and are fine with them younger, but can they operate them?
Right.
And I think kind of until it was either that you just use something bad, or eventually like the Nerf Junior line exists and they're fine. But yeah, I think that's exciting to have another option like that for the younger age group.
I mean, again, it's kind of like unnecessary maybe, but when my 3-year-old can pick up a blaster and shoot at 130 feet per second and just like giggle. Yeah. And like, cause he's like, this is amazing.
Yeah, totally.
And when he picks it up, and then it's like, run.
Yeah. The real question I'm going to have, are you going to make them to where they can also be adjustable for their age? Essentially, can they start at a lower FPS and then later on bump it up to be hitting harder as they get older? Is that going to be potentially in the works? I'm curious.
Potentially.
Okay.
We've done it before. Yeah.
Well,
I know you've done it on your other ones, so obviously
the adjustability on the Mauler was a really interesting feature. Which cannot think of any. Like Out of Darts made those plug things for the back of the Nexus and for a few other things, but like an off the shelf adjustability. Where did that come from? Was that an idea of yours, or was that something that got?
I think it was actually probably, I think it was probably actually like Frank's idea. Because
it was
one
just
of the
adjusting
original
the catch, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's 3 different catch points or something like that.
Yeah. It's just limiting how far back the plunger comes back and how much, compression it's putting on the spring. But that blaster was like pretty far down the line. And and then he threw me like a curveball. He's like, "Well, can we make it adjustable?" And I was
Oh my
like,
God.
"Sure."
So it was added late. That feature was added late.
It was
'Cause, like, that's
it was added late.
interesting.
But I just had to
yeah.
like sit there and look at the CAD for a second. I was like, "Yeah, I mean, like this should work." So I
Yeah.
3D printed another set of parts, and played with the adjustable, like the setting, and figured out where we wanted those catches to be. And I was like,
Okay.
"Yeah, it works great." And I'm like, I don't think anyone's ever done this before. So, that was cool.
I don't think anyone has. I definitely
No.
can't think of an example of that.
It's all aftermarket stuff. It like off the shelf. Nobody's ever really done that. I mean, that's that, and for
Not with-
Springer especially, you've never really seen
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, not with that much ease, at least. I mean, it's literally, just pulling this. I mean, you can always, like the dart zone, you can swap the springs and stuff, but that's not a half-second adjustment.
Yeah, that's not just a button or a slide or
Right.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now
Now,
I've been like racking my brain of how else can I do that. So I've got some things swimming around.
okay.
Nice.
Now the Blink has benefits from your Band Blasters work, right? You have
Yeah.
some of those wheel cage profiles. What do you
Yep.
feel like? How does it feel to actually get those in mass production in a blaster? Kind like does it kind of feel like a resolution of the original Band Blasters campaign? I mean, obviously the Blink is not the same as the Band Blasters blaster, but it's got the adjustability, it's got the cage, it's got the wheels, right? Like, does it feel a little bit?
Yeah, no, I mean, like
kinda got
this
there?
thing definitely makes me smile just because the guy who designed this, I actually like really enjoyed the initial design of this blaster.
I like the
Like,
aesthetics
I
of
just-
the Blink.
I think it feels good. And there could be some ergonomic improvements slightly,
Yeah.
but it's acceptable for me. The biggest thing, like, and this was a nightmare, but I balance all my wheels when I make my cages, so they're really smooth, they're really quiet.
Right.
You barely even like can feel the blaster moving or vibrating when
Yeah.
it's all set up and it's all like perfect. So injection molding flywheels and then running them at 44,000 RPMs was challenging. And I just kept I'm like very much a perfectionist. So I was like, this is too loud, this is too, like, it's vibrating too much, like all of that like vibration decreases performance from like perfectly balanced wheels. But at some point you just have to be like, all right, it is what it is. It's just too hard to get a perfectly balanced wheel out of an injection molded machine. And
It's that mass production limitation you have.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so I had like a hard time like swallowing that, but I was like, well, it's still consistently in the 180s and they'll hit 190.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be quiet now, and it's good enough for me.
I mean, I think one thing that you can take some solace in is if you look across the marketing campaign has been discussed a lot in the hobby, right? Like a lot,
Yeah.
the fact that a lot of creators have been paid to do their reviews has sort of changed that. But if you look at a lot of the reviews of the folks who were not paid, the
Yeah.
Blink consistently gets like positive reviews. And
Yeah.
I think you should definitely take some good feelings from that. Cause like,
Yeah.
I think the hobby definitely recognizes that, like, yeah, for like a mass produced flywheeler, this thing is really, really kicking out the jams.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I've loved watching the videos and talking to like the wall comes and stuff, and he's like, "No, dude, this thing's pretty special."
It's great.
I'm just
And,
hoping to
yeah.
find them in thrift stores because I want to yank the cages out of them. It's like it's such a cheap way to get a cage.
Can
obviously.
you
Like,
imagine? Just think
I
about like when they start showing up in thrift stores, right? It's like we went from like right when we were starting the show, like it was like a little bit after you had done the Indiegogo, and it was like Band Blasters was still kind of a new thing, and now you can go to the thrift store and like get one of these things for $5 and get a Band Blasters cage out of it.
Yeah,
And it's-
right.
it's
Yeah,
like-
because that's what I'm looking at. Because there are blasters. If you get, even if it's $10 or $15 for one of the overpriced thrift stores, that's still so cheap just to get that cage and those flywheels. Even if they're not like
the ideal
nice
version
balanced
of them.
ones,
Yeah.
just getting that cheap mass produced one is still such a great buy for me. I'm like, because I love resto modding stuff and shoving it into things it shouldn't be. That is such a cheap way to do it. And I'm sitting here just like, oh yes, this is what we've needed for so long. So I'm actually excited for the possibility of even just coming across them at a thrift store.
Yeah.
So, it'll happen one day. You'll get lucky.
Oh yeah, I'm looking out for it for sure.
One more sort of in the weeds question that I want to ask you about this. What's up with the darts? What happened with the? Do you want to?
I don't even want to. No, I don't. You'd think like the easiest thing, or whatever. You'd think like, oh, it's a dart. It should be simple. Well, not when you like try to completely reinvent the wheel with the dart. I don't know. We wanted to try the EPP foam, which I definitely think had potential. But the problem, like, there's just so much more to making that dart body than there is to extruding some EPE foam. And even like with a bamboo, then it goes through another process to give you that shape of the bamboo. But it's, you're throwing a bunch of pellets in there. They're getting hot. They're getting shoved into a machine. It's creating the dart. But, if the temperature's not right, the cooling time's not right, it's just like all these other variables that go into it. Then you end up with crappy darts. And it's really hard to keep an eye on, where these things are being made, that people aren't cutting corners and whatnot, because we did have it like super dialed in and they were like incredibly durable. Like I was shooting them out of the blank, 50 plus times, and darts were still together, heads were still on. But but
then you get to the actual
someone else comes
version.
in,
right?
Yeah, and they're like, someone's like, oh, let's just push this up a little bit and pop these out of the machine quicker, or whatever happens. Like, it just
we've talked about the problems with manufacturing. You'll go all the way down the line. Things will even change from your personal design or settings or whatever you need in the factories. And they're trying to save their own dollars and pennies or whatever on everything that they're putting out. So they'll make slight tweaks or changes to that, which obviously in this case could just totally ruin it.
Yeah.
Right. Just trying to pump it out a tiny bit faster just to save time and money in their pocket is ruining a product for NSI or for whoever, obviously.
Yeah, I remember when we early on in this show we were talking about, speaking of Busby again, the Thunder, whatever it is, the revolver thumb prime thing, which they just completely changed the internals design and it basically broke the blaster. Was there anything in these designs where you kind of got the final product and you were like, oh, this isn't really what I designed? Was there anything like that, or were you able to kind of keep some control over that part of the process?
I mean, like I could keep control. So it was like, it would go for my CAD and then they would take it and they'd make sure everything was like tooling perfect.
Right.
So they really like touch everything, which then it's kind of hard to look at something on the computer. I mean, you can take like all your measurements and you can try to make sure that everything is exact as, what I gave them.
Right.
But sometimes you might miss something here or there, or like an O-ring groove is just, is fractions of a millimeter different. So the seal is no good. Yeah. I mean, there's just a lot of things. It's hard to, it's just hard. There's a lot that goes into it that people probably just don't think about.
Like you spend so much time and you go back through so many iterations. I imagine you could get a finished product back from the factory and not even be able to like recognize something that they changed until it's like a lot in people's hands, right?
Right. And like what's going on with like the Mahler O-ring right now, like on the dart pusher, like green part that pushes the dart in, like people are losing those O-rings. And
someone who lost their gnarl barrel, I think that only happened once or twice though. I don't know if
screw that didn't get tightened. And it's just, it's like, I try to feed a lot of it because I'm also doing that for NSI right now. I'm taking like customers' complaints. If they had something go wrong, I'll send them out a new blaster. But first, I'm just like, kind of want to have a conversation with them or through text or whatever. Be like, check this first. It's really only been like a couple things, and it's always the same case. but yeah, it's like just super frustrating because I'm like, I can't be there to assemble every blaster, and
Of course.
I can't be over there looking over their shoulder. So like, I know we've taken some heat over this, but I'm like, it's, I've talked to the factory, Frank's talked to the factory. It's just difficult because unfortunately you can't talk to the worker that's cutting a corner or whatever. And then they changed an O-ring on us without telling us, and they put in like this super soft durometer silicone O-ring, and it's now caused like this giant problem. So it's just frustrating because I'm like, it's probably, besides the screws, the smallest part in that whole entire blaster, but when it falls off, it makes the whole blaster not work very well. So,
do you think the degree to which you're sort of having to deal with that, I mean, it has a lot to do with the size of the company, right? Like you're kind of in this Goldilocks zone in the middle where it's like, if you are Band Blasters or you are Silly Butts or like some individual designer or Out of Darts, right? Like you expect to be dealing individually with people's builds. If you're Hasbro, you're just like, whatever. Like, I made a bunch of them. Some of them won't work. It's fine. It's not a big deal. But I feel like maybe you're sort of like in this in-between space where it impacts you differently.
Well, I mean, it like really just bugs me. But yeah, I mean, we were trying to hit like a defective rate of, like 2% or lower, which honestly, I don't know really where we're at because, like you said, the hobby community is such a small percentage of everything that's been bought all over through Amazon, Target, whatever. And we really haven't had that many complaints. Now, I don't know if people are just not complaining, but there's been a lot sold and really, all said and done, not that many complaints, but the hobby sure let us know about the complaints that they had. But like, that really bugs me because I'm just a perfectionist type of person. So I'm like, it just kills me. But there's really nothing I can do about it other than send people a new O-ring and be like, put it in and you'll be fine.
Well, it's nice to have a hobby where you can send someone an O-ring and be like, and they know what to do with it. So that's good at least. I mean, one of the things we've talked about quite a bit too is how the hobby is such a small percentage of the buying public, but has an outsized influence. It's like we put this podcast out and somewhere between like 600 to 1,000 people maybe view it, and all those people now have this idea that they get from it that can extend there. And we're peanuts compared to a Wacom, compared to who's got thousands and thousands of views on their videos. And it's like, if you have all this background in the hobby and you have this informed opinion, but you're also trying to like grab views and like be kind of like reactionary or whatever, you are seen by so many people, and even though you represent a very niche community, you have this larger impact, and you have kids watching your videos that are making their decisions about what they're asking for Christmas or whatever.
I mean, for sure. I, look up reviews on YouTube all the time, and I'm, so anyone could see that. That's why I'm thankful for the people who are not Walcoms and stuff making reviews, and the majority of them are pretty decent. So I'm like, well, that's good to see because that is an honest to God review, and they seem to be super excited with it. So that's, I mean, obviously what makes me happier than anything. But these influencers reach a lot of people. So, I'd like on that brief that you sent me, I have nothing to do with the marketing and the verbiage and all that stuff. I was like, wow, it's kind of bold, guys, but
did you know that did you have any idea there was going to be their approach?
No, not really. And I'm honestly not really sure. I mean, they hired a marketing team, and I haven't even seen a whole lot of the marketing, so I really can't say much about it. But I feel like that was like a very aggressive approach and very we're gonna dominate. And I was like, well, let's just hold on a second.
I think part of what's interesting about it is that a lot of the things, I was saying this earlier, a lot of the things that they did are not unusual in other spaces. But I think in our hobby in particular, it is a very new idea, and it's not, and I think that people involved in a hobby like this take it much more personally. So I think that they were kind of blindsided by that sort of thing happening, especially to creators they were already comfortable with, that they knew about. So
we're hypercritical in the hobby about just about everything, whether it's the product itself, especially if it's a off the shelf product. They're very critical about that. I mean, obviously, I can't even tell you the comments I get about Nerf in series because I just made a mod video about it. Just the level of like I said, just kind of hypercritical that people are about something. If they've formed that opinion about something, they are picking it apart, just down to the microscopic level. And it's funny because again, we're so small, and yet they are. If something is against what they like, or they have that opinion, or whatever it is, they will let you know, and they will just come out in droves, and they will take their time, and they will waste as much time as they need to let you know whatever they think is wrong with the thing, even if it's something that has been normal, or even if it's something that is a problem with higher dollar blasters that are sort of boutique and stuff, and it's still they definitely they are definitely opinionated on a lot of that in a very
for sure
personal level. I would say it's almost like it's a personal thing with a lot of people in the hobby. They almost take it personally.
It is. I mean, and that's what it sounds like when I read some reviews, or like I said, when I was on Discord when Band Blasters was first starting out, people were like ripping apart the name and the performance, and this is BS, and there's no way, and it's impossible. And I was like, okay, well, maybe this isn't for me. I'm just gonna
I've had conversations. I've had conversations with Foam Blast because they're friends. They're local to me, and I've talked with them, and I find it really funny talking to Michelle about her motors, obviously, because a lot of the hobby motors that are out there were designed by Michelle, and it's really funny to me that people back then also did the same thing. They told Michelle, "Nope, it's impossible. Nope, you don't know what you're talking about." And they would do the same thing, and they would go hyper critiquing about this, and they would give all their numbers and their quote armchair engineering. And she just hated the fact that people told her it's impossible. Yeah. And she created basically what is now the hobby when it comes to flywheel motors, especially. Like, those are all her designs, and it's just it was funny that so many people want to critique you, and it's yet they only know based on being in the hobby. They're not, a lot of them aren't engineers. They don't have a background in this. They don't know and I find it very strange, the feeling of it's impossible because no one else has done it. And it's a lot of times I'm in a complete different mindset. Yeah, it's such a silly thing. My thing is, it's impossible because nobody's tried it, or nobody's tested it, or nobody's tried something new, or technology has changed, or all kinds of stuff. And I feel there's too many people that want to put the brakes on somebody else's creativity, and it's really strange to me. And I really wish that we would be a little bit more open to the ideas, or open to this stuff, especially if somebody's dedicating all that time. Because I remember when, and we talked about that as well earlier with the folks that do the high FPS springers, they thought that everybody kept telling them it's stupid. And then we started getting really crazy, like, barrel combinations and really amazing abilities to create better efficiencies throughout the whole systems and so on. It's like, that's what it's for. It's not about whether or not it's this. It's just somebody wanted to see what they could do, and they found a bunch of cool stuff along the way. I don't see where's the negative in that.
Yeah. I mean, there's not. Just weird. And like you said, you just by pushing the envelope, you're gonna learn things. You're gonna figure things out on how just to make an average blaster way more efficient. Like the ratio between air volume and barrel length, or whatever. Like, there's just, you can always learn something, right? And there's always probably 10 different ways to do the same thing, or to accomplish the same thing. So, maybe one way is just way more efficient and ends up being better, and it will make the whole hobby better. So, people are very opinionated, and that's fine. Like I don't care, but
well,
they weren't very gentle.
That's part of why I'm really excited to have someone like you on the podcast too, because I think a lot of people forget that there's humans behind a lot of the products. You know, it's like you buy a thing off the shelf and it feels like it just sort of came to exist out of the ether. And it's like, no, there's people who are like interested and involved in our hobby, who are real human beings who
put passion into the project.
Yeah,
that's my thing. It's a lot of people who are putting their stuff into this, and whatever you're designing, you are passionate about it. And there are always going to be things out of your control that, like you said, whether it's the manufacturing or somebody trying to cut corners or whatever, and you're trying your best on your side because you're passionate about it, and then people just rip it apart, just acting as if, you know, there wasn't somebody on the other side of that really trying to bring to market a really cool product. And it's kind of sucks. I feel people forget that way too often, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, I try to just have like luckily my last boss was like, you had to have really thick skin to work for him. Like almost comically so. Like, I mean, if you looked up the reviews of the company, every single review is a criticism of him and, oh my God, he's a maniac and blah, 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 blah. But I always got along with him because I think, I don't know, I was just always like striving to do. I didn't take it personal. And you know, if I made him a prototype 15 years ago, it's probably still working on a shelf right now. You know, like you never had an issue with me. Like I would try to do my best. If I'm not happy with it, then why would I expect him to be happy with it? I saw a lot of people come in and out the doors through the 15 years I was there, and like just with zero craftsmanship. You know, it's like, I don't know. Like I just don't understand how you can't care that much. Like that is wild to me. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna put everything into this stuff that I can, and I think going forward I'll have a lot more input and say. So there'll be some good things coming along. I have already talked to Frank about one. I was like working on some new wheels, and I was like, look, if we do this, people will go nuts. He's like, well, slow down. But I'm like, I'm already like going there. I'm like, look, this just it's not out there, and people would go bonkers if you put this on shelf, like forget about it. Big game changer. So I'm thinking to push hard, and I don't really have anyone holding me back. So
I'm excited to see what it could be.
Sounds like there's a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, so on that, there's another question I want to ask you, but it's not from me technically. We have a Ko-Fi where folks, speaking to the listeners now, can back us, can support us by donating monthly. And one of the things that Ko-Fi backers get to do is ask guests questions on the podcast. And our first question is from Ghost Armory, who asks about your design process. What is your design process like? And you talked a little bit earlier about sort of like 3D printing parts and trying stuff out. Do you tend to, I'm looking at your workshop, you got a lot of tools and stuff, but I don't know, like, is that an early part of the prototyping? Is that a late part of the prototyping? Do you kind of start in CAD, or do you like, what does it usually look like for you?
Yeah, so generally always starts in CAD. And at least the way that these blasters were developed was I kind of gave the designers at NSI like parameters to fit their stuff around. So I kind of gave them some guts, and then was like, look, you know, do what you want. This is what I'm going to recommend. And again, like when this was all happening, I was working for NSI 1 day a week. So it wasn't like a daily thing. And then they kind of just gave me a design, and a lot of times like it didn't fit. I was like, what's going on? Like plunger tube doesn't even come close to fitting in what you gave. It's like, it was really frustrating. But so yeah, they were designing, and then I'd go through, I'd put all the internals in, all the ribs, all the bosses, all that stuff. And then we'd go to like, I always use SLS for printing. It's nylon, and it's, you know, incredibly durable and strong. So I would print stuff out of SLS, and I'd put just like acrylic plunger tubes and stuff in it with aluminum barrels that I would, you know, buy from one of the shops.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would have factory overseas make me some springs, a whole bunch of different turns and wire gauge and diameters and everything. And so yeah, it's kind of, I mean, a lot of it is CAD, and then a lot of it is they will send me CAD back after they do all their changes for tooling and stuff. And then a couple weeks of just sitting down and like looking at that. I'll usually make another prototype from their CAD to just be like, all right, what doesn't fit or what just isn't working out properly.
Yeah.
But then again, like these tolerances in these blasters is so tight that until parts actually started coming off tools, like I don't know if an O-ring's not making a good seal because of the 3D printed part that I got back, or
right.
because the actual measurement needs to change there. So a lot of it, and like, you know, this factory had never really dealt with this before, at least like with this performance that we were trying to achieve. So it's just hard, and to be like, all right, well, that needs to be tweaked, or, you know, here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it was, I would give internal guts, they would design something, I would finish it out, make a prototype, and then just kind of roll the ball down from there. So hopefully that answered the question. I don't know, I'm not very great
No,
at this.
that's really interesting. You know, you're sort of starting in the digital realm, but you definitely get into like physical experimentation as it kind of moves on towards a thing. I mean, when you're working on your own, like when you're working on Band Blaster stuff, that's not like for a larger company. Is it any different? I mean, it's probably pretty similar, right? It's just that you're not passing things off with other people as much.
Yeah, I'd say it's very similar, and you know, it's just like small changes at a time to like get me to where the final wheels were. Like under this table behind me, I've probably got, I don't know, I probably made 1,000 different wheels before I finalized one.
Just little changes until your wife comes in and goes, "Stop it."
Yeah, stop. It's too loud. The kids are trying to sleep. And I'm sitting down there going,
yeah. Well, more calling back to what you were saying before, where it's like, she's sort of the arbiter of like, you've done enough. It's fine.
Right.
Give it up.
Right.
It's good.
Right. And that's, you know, I just have a hard time doing that. Cause even like Frank, my boss, is like, at a certain point, we just gotta call it. And he's like, we'll you know, we'll fix that next time around or whatever. And I'm like,
yeah,
all right. I'm like, all right. Like the grip on the Mauler, for instance, I had a big issue with, but it was already so far down the road. He's like, we can't change it now. And I was like, all right, well, people will complain about it. Just letting you know. And they sure are, but you know, whatever. So we just have to make sure from now on that stuff does never happen again.
I gotta say, having messed with the priming pull part that Xbox Games made for the Gnarl, you know, people are coming up with cool stuff. Like that's always sort of a mark of like success on some level, where it's like if all the hobby companies are even bothering to make parts for your product, you did something right.
Yeah,
you know?
no, I mean, that's actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because it's like really cool. Like, people will have a issue with their Mauler, and they'll be like, oh, but I'm waiting on this new barrel and shroud for it. And I'm like, oh, look at that. People made stuff
right
for my baby.
Exactly.
You're going to dress it all up.
That's really cool.
So yeah, no, that is, and I do appreciate that. So that is definitely cool. I just wish I could see them on shelves.
Are they just not near you? Or
I mean, like the Gnarl is in, like you said, like Tractor Supply and stuff, but I don't think they're in like actually in the Targets and Walmarts and stuff yet. But that's kind of, again, where this younger Siren that we're doing now should be able to help us get our foot in the door. Yeah. And so later on we can do another 14 plus or whatever, and
that makes sense,
and have them not, you know, they're just leery about it now. They're like, what do you mean? What is this? It's new, it's foreign. We don't want it in the store. So we kind of now need to like prove ourselves, and maybe, you know, put a younger kid blaster in there that does well, and then maybe they'll let us move in. Who knows?
One other question from the Ko-Fi. Iron Gopher asks, which is wider, Australia or the moon?
I don't know. I'm gonna go with Australia.
Okay.
Probably the
an
moon.
answer. I don't know. I honestly,
Leave it to Gopher.
that was just Gopher's question. I don't actually have an. Wait, there's a Snopes article about this. Oh, wait. Is Australia wider than the Earth's moon? Yes and no. It depends on which yardstick we use. What? The moon's diameter, 3,476 kilometers, and then Australia is about 4,000 kilometers, but the moon's land area is larger than the continent.
Well, of course it is. It's a sphere.
Yeah. I was going to say, what?
Well, okay, there you go. Great.
But
sort of.
It does say the moon is wider diameter?
Yeah, because the Australia was
Not
like
circumference,
4,000.
like
Yeah, the diameter. Because it said the width of Australia is like 4,000 something yards, but then the moon was like 3,000 something.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. Okay, thanks, Gopher. Great, appreciate you. Cool.
Yeah.
It is anyway. Now it's time for our increasingly notorious hobby trivia game, in which we will ask you 3 trivia questions about the foam flinging hobby. And if you're able to get 2 out of 3 correct, each one a multiple choice answer. Did you even know this was part of the show? Did you read down this far?
I saw it on the thing, and I was like, guys, I'm not even like really in the hobby. I just make stuff for you guys.
I wouldn't worry about that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't worry about
put
that.
too much
I don't
stock
think it's
in
gonna
that.
matter.
It's fine.
If you're able to get 2 out of 3 correctly, you will win an opportunity for someone who does not back the Ko-Fi to get a free question of one of our next guests. And specifically, that is our next episode. We will have Colin Blank, aka Ghostlow Taco, on. We'll be talking about a variety of things, but also the Corbett Charity Drive, the Sox Charity Drive.
This is where I look like an idiot.
So today, I have questions for you, which are about band blasters.
Okay, well, I should hopefully know these, but who knows?
Vile, how do you want to do this? You probably don't want to read the third one.
Okay.
But if you want to either just read the other 2, or if you just want to do the middle one so we can alternate, whatever you want to do.
It's fine. Do you want to alternate? Because the first one's kind of short anyways, so...
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll just alternate.
So, our first question. Which of the following blasters is banned in the United States state of California? 1, a worker Swift when set up for maximum power. 2, the Busby Air Warriors Blow Blaster. Or C, a modified Drain Blaster.
A modified what? Grain blaster?
Drain Blaster. Are you familiar with this? You take the, so it's like one of those, it's like a thing for clearing like a toilet drain. It's usually used on like a sink or on a toilet, where it's like a giant, it's a huge air pressure blaster, but it just is supposed, it has like a plunger on the end. It's just supposed to force air through. But people will take them and like single them for a dart, and you can shoot ridiculous numbers because it's like an oversized like Titan tank basically.
Okay, I guess I'll go with C.
Are you sure? Why? What's your logic? What's your reasoning?
Well, it sounds dangerous, and California doesn't like dangerous things.
It's
or
pretty
fast
true.
Cars that are anything.
That's pretty true. Okay.
Well, it's wrong, right?
All right. If that's your final answer, that's fine. Yes, that is incorrect. The correct answer is B.
Was it
Busby
A? Oh, okay.
It's B. So the Busby Air Warriors Blow Blaster. Blowguns of all types have been banned in California since at least the 1970s. I think the law actually goes back farther, and then it was like modified later. Anyway, so yeah. Actually, if you go to Ragnarok Oktoberfest, they always have a thing that they're very specifically like, you cannot bring any kind of blow blaster. They are not allowed in this state. It doesn't matter what it's shooting. They're just all banned in California and have been for a really long time.
I learned something tonight.
All right. You want to go ahead, Vile, with question number 2?
All right, question number 2. Everyone knows about the Recon that was recalled in 2008. But in a lesser known event... I can't even get through.
Not this guy.
Yeah, but in a lesser note, do I have to grab the actual recon?
We can talk about it later. It's fine.
All right, I'll talk about it later. In a lesser known event, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission recalled a set of Microshots series blasters. For which reason? Got these. God, KT, where do you find this stuff? Is it A, versions of the blaster intended for a different market were shipped to Australia on accident, which fired too hard for Australian safety standards? B, on the packaging, the text warning, do not aim at eyes or face, was printed in Spanish and Portuguese instead of English? Or was it C, elite darts supposed to be included in the package were replaced with hard-tipped aftermarket darts in the factory? I can read over everything again because we kind of got a little
No, I mean,
there.
I understand the question. I don't know what the answer is, but
I can read
I'm like, okay.
the answer.
I'm like, well, the darts could have easily been switched out post or pre-packaging. It wouldn't be hard for something to go wrong to not pass a KED test, even though I don't know what they are in Australia. And what was B?
B was on the packaging, the text, and in quotes,
Spanish.
warning, do not aim at eyes or face was printed in Spanish and Portuguese instead of English.
I have no idea, and I'm sorry to whoever I'm screwing over right now by not getting two out of three. I'm gonna go with. I'll go with C again.
You want to try a different one?
A.
That's a good guess, though, because I know you know a lot about that, how that can kind of wind up going awry at the
I'm
factory.
like-
Hasbro has quite a lot of control over their factories, though, and for two different darts to be manufactured, and that might have been a little bit of a hard press. So maybe.
Okay. How about
are
B?
you familiar? Correct. B is correct.
You would be correct. Yes.
The easiest thing for it to get screwed up.
It is. It was literally because it was in the wrong language in Australia.
Yeah, they just like mixed up the packaging and it shipped the wrong thing, and
It happens, you know. Okay.
Australia's
so.
a tough one too, though, because they also have the gray trigger instead of the orange trigger, which actually showed that it was a lower power. So that was something.
Which is what answer A was alluding to, but but in this case, the microshots don't shoot hard enough to need a gray trigger version.
Yeah.
So it doesn't actually apply to these. Okay, you're one.
All right.
You're one up. Just gotta get one more. Here we go. You ready for this? Here's the third question.
Yeah.
This is what we need. 2 out of 3. That's all we need.
Just give me one answer.
Give me just a second because I have to read this with a straight face.
I'm looking at it right now. It's a doozy.
Since 2015, the Pakistan city of Peshawar has banned the sale of toy guns of all kinds during Ramadan as an effort to push back against their popularity as an Eid gift for children, despite the country's fraught relationship with war and gun violence. Each year, when does this ban go into effect? A, when the chairman of Peshawar's Qasim Ali Khan Mosque announces the sighting of the crescent moon. B, when Pakistan's Ru'yat-e-Hilal Committee announces the sighting of the crescent moon. Or C, March 12th.
Ramadan is not in March, I don't believe, because I see a lot of stuff like that around my house. Or is it? No, maybe it is. Oh boy.
I mean, a hint to how Ramadan works is in some of the answers, if you don't recall.
Yeah, the crescent moon. I mean, I know that's like their thing that they hang on their windows and stuff. I have no idea. B. A
You are
or
correct.
C.
It is B. When Pakistan's Ru'yat-e-Hilal Committee announces the sighting of the crescent moon. So, and I'm not going to try to speak on this with too much authority. I probably know. I get like more about Islam than the average non-Islamic person, but like not by much. But the Islamic calendar is lunar, and so Ramadan is actually a month in their calendar, and so there's a lot of debate about when, like, who actually is supposed to see the crescent moon first to make the official announcement that it is now Ramadan and people need to follow the rules of Ramadan. And in Pakistan specifically, which was established specifically as an Islamic government, there is an official committee, statewide committee, countrywide committee that announces the official sighting of the crescent moon. And when that announcement, many things go into effect, including this toy blaster ban, which they do actually have Nerf and foam dart blasters available there. But a lot of the stuff that's impacted is sort of like the cheap sort of like mimicking real firearms stuff.
Sure.
But it does also impact, as best as I understand it.
And if you didn't notice, the answer to all questions was B.
It was all B again. Yeah.
Is it always like that?
It's not always like that, but I do that sometimes. Generally, if like two of them, little hint for anyone else coming on the show, if the first two are the same letter, the third one's probably going to be the same letter, or like, you know, if two of them are different, the third one's probably going to be the other one.
KT might play on names and the first initial of those names.
Hold on, maybe we'll get through this without referring to the same person that we always refer to.
I'm going to get to the end and just say it. That's what I'm going to do.
Anyway, congratulations. I forgot to say the name of the person who was picked in the random drawing. Sav Zombie on the Discord. You have access to a free question of... I'm surprised we didn't get one from the winner of the last one. Maybe they just didn't get a chance to listen to the podcast, because this asking you a question would have been a pretty big ticket item, but oh well, they're lost. Sav Zombie, reach out to me if you have a question for Colin, aka Go Slow Taco. And we'll make sure that happens on the next podcast. Congratulations on making it through the trivia game.
Yeah, that was rough. I'm sweating over here.
I've been feeling pretty good about the question 3, the way question 3 has been going the last few episodes. Question 3 is kind of always like that. It's not really about the hobby. It's just a question about something unrelated, and I tie it into the hobby somehow.
I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That was a lucky guess.
Yeah, no, it was good. You nailed it. It was perfect. Couple other things worth talking about that you might have some thoughts about as well. We've been talking a lot about the hobby's connection to China lately. We've had an increase in products being imported into Europe and the US from the Chinese market, particularly. A lot of like machined stuff that's starting to become available there. And trying to cover more of that stuff on the show and sort of encourage cross collaboration. We've been seeing more legitimate licensing of Western design by Chinese manufacturers, which is really exciting. Meanwhile, Hasbro is now shifting their manufacturing away from China. That's actually been going on for a while, I guess. And possibly with more urgency now, considering possible tariffs coming up in the U.S. from a new political administration. Hasbro's already in the mode of kind of cutting costs. I'm curious how this is going to affect that company. I'm curious how it's going to, if NSI is talking about these things right now, and how it might affect a variety of companies. I don't know. I know that for like Buzzbee and for Primetime, Dart Zone, they're sort of like multinational companies. Like they have an arm in China or in Hong Kong. I don't know if NSI kind of functions that way, or if you're just an American company and you like contract with. Are you expecting? No. Let me start with that. Are you expecting effects are you already feeling effects?
I haven't heard anything up to this point, but I also may have not heard anything and may never hear anything. But we do
Right.
have a office over there in Hong Kong.
Oh, okay.
So we have people. We have boots on the ground over there, and they're the ones. They're kind of like my right hand man over there. So when there is an issue with the factory, their names are Ken and Jackie. I can actually be like, hey guys, you need to go to the factory and figure out what is going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got people over there too. So I don't know if we'll be affected or not.
Yeah.
It's not
I mean,
my
it's hard to
decision,
say at
so.
this point, but like it's
Yeah.
interesting to see companies already sort of starting to shift gears and make
Yeah.
plans in preparation preparation for that. But yeah, I mean, if y'all don't know what you're doing yet, that's fine. Or if it's just maybe
No.
nothing, who knows?
I wouldn't expect it to affect us very
Okay.
much, honestly.
Yeah.
Unless it's just like tariffs or whatever, you're like way too high and shipping and everything gets way too expensive, then maybe, but
I mean, what do
We've
you
got a
think?
pretty-
What do you just hypothetically like? What do you think a company like NSI would do if it just became unfeasible to import parts
Well,
or
I mean, I
manufacture
know-
product?
I know Frank has worked with other factories in other countries, so
Yeah,
I also believe he has connections, in different parts of the world. So if he needed to, he'd probably just cut ties and move somewhere else and get the job done. So
Okay.
he's been doing this for a long time. He knows lots of people. So,
yeah.
but I haven't heard anything of us, of anything happening with China, Hong Kong yet.
Okay.
So I'm just a little engineer over here.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Vile, care to speculate about the bigger companies?
I'm not sure on that. Because a lot of times just how the tariffs really work. I was curious if it had something to do with the quantity of stuff, like how much is actually coming out. Is it going to affect a larger company like Hasbro more, because
Right.
they pump out so much? And is it a smaller company that maybe doesn't have as much? Is it not going to affect them as much? I don't know. Obviously, it's always kind of weird to speculate on it because you don't know how exactly the tariff's really going to be applied. If obviously depending on what they want to do with it. But yeah, I'm kind of curious because we've had like made in China for so long, and before that, it was like made in Taiwan, right? That was a huge one for a long
Yes.
time there for toys, especially. We saw made in Taiwan for so long. Sometimes you'd see like made in Singapore or something like that. But if they do change it, it's going to be kind of interesting to see it shift back to sort of an older country that we used to see more product coming out of.
Right.
Like I said, especially back when we were kids, like, 80s, 90s, stuff like that. Like I said, you didn't really see made in China. You kept seeing made in Taiwan primarily.
Yeah.
I'd be really interested to see that. Because I know that we've already seen stuff coming out of India. That has been a thing that
Yes.
Hasbro's been doing, is moving a lot of the manufacturing over there.
It's India.
And-
Yeah, I think that's their big. That's their increasing.
Yeah, I was
market.
curious if they were moving it over to India primarily, or if they were going to switch it back to maybe a mixture between, say, India and Taiwan, or India and somewhere else. I'm not really sure.
Well,
but-
and I know that when I was researching the story that we just did on this in this recent episode, they do have manufacturing in the U.S. too. Hasbro has U.S. manufacturing to some degree. They used to own some manufacturing plants. They did wind up selling them, but most of the ones that they sold, they are the primary customer of people that took it over. It's mostly board game stuff. They're not making Nerf there really, but I don't know how achievable that is for every company. So yeah, time will tell. I mean, I think the really key takeaway right now is it's just sort of like everybody's in a position of just sort of like trying to be prepared and speculate for something that we just don't know
preemptive
what it's
about
going
it.
to be, and that is what it is.
Yeah.
Speaking of
Wish we could make
manufacturing,
more stuff here.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
it
Wouldn't
would
that
be-
be nice?
Yeah.
Would be nice.
It would have allowed us to probably not have a lot of what's happening happen.
Well,
because
you don't
would-
have the communication things. You don't have the timelines of having to ship things back and forth. You have more immediate control over what's happening in the factory. You can just like drive or fly there and just like see what's going on.
Right. Because I mean, I was I went to Hong Kong. I went to the factory in China for like a week and a half when this production line stuff was first starting. And everything that was coming off the lines was great. Like, no issues.
Yeah.
And where there were things, I was like, all right, that's got to change. That's got to change. That's got to change. But, then they just start to change things without telling people. And
yeah.
That's when problems start.
I was going to say, it would be interesting if they started moving manufacturing to a place like Mexico again. Because there used to be a lot of stuff that was in Mexico for a while there. And then obviously China became so cheap and it was just so competitive to just obviously push it over there. But we've seen a lot of more companies also moving back to Mexico. I would know that as somebody that's working in the States and having to work with the factory, it would be much nicer to be in a similar time zone, obviously, and then having to not have to deal with overseas shipping or that as long of a flight if you have to go down to the factory for whatever reason.
Right.
Obviously, I think that would be kind of interesting if they pulled it back there, but I don't know the feasibility of it. And
so
100%.
I'm not just completely randomly grabbing a guitar here. So
I was going to say, what's going on over there?
So this is something that comes up a lot in the music world too. This guitar is an Ed O'Brien signature Strat. Ed O'Brien's one of the guitarists from Radiohead. That doesn't matter. Fender has long made, they have their USA instruments that cost a lot of money, and they're sort of like really high custom, like a lot of times instruments. And then they have Mexican made stuff, which is significantly cheaper, but still better than the like Squier stuff, which is made. It's moved around from Japan. I think there's still a facility in Japan, but primarily it's made in Korea currently. But the long running secret has always been that the stuff made in Mexico really is every bit as good as the stuff made in America. And the reality is the two factories are like less than 40 miles apart across the border. And I think it's really undersold as a market and a manufacturing space. And this is a Mexican made one. When Ed O'Brien was making the deal with Fender to do this, he was specifically said, "Hey, can we make this a Mexican guitar? I want to be able to get it in the hands of like young players who can't afford an American Fender. I want this to be at least like feasible for people to afford and actually make this a tool." And I think that's definitely something that our market might be able to consider as well. And just having it that much closer where you can have someone who lives in California or Arizona or whatever and could just get to the facility really easily with a single border crossing.
Yeah, the last company I worked for I was in San Diego, and we were 2 miles from the Tijuana border right there. And our manufacturing that we had for our satellite, drafting and office area, the one in Tijuana was again only like a couple miles away. Yeah, and they would build everything that we were designing, and then it would just come right across the border. We would sometimes get it in our office because we had a facility, and then they would then move that on to wherever they were going to be installing the stuff that they were building. And the work was just as good as the guys that were in Milwaukee who had top of the line everything in this factory, because they had the office there, and they had the whole facility to build just downstairs. So the drafters would put like 3 lines on a page and then walk down and talk to the guy, and they would build stuff, and they had touch screens and all this other stuff. And then the guys in Tijuana were just out there with hand tools, and I'll actually tell this one story. We were trying to build something that was so big and difficult. The guys in Milwaukee said, "We'll take it. We'll do it." And they had the newest technology, the newest stuff. These guys were, again, able to walk downstairs and talk to each other. They held onto this one project for 3 months. And then the head of that department said, "Can't be done. It's impossible to build." they gave the stuff over to the guy in Tijuana. They were building it in a week. and it's installed right now in at this place that we had, and they built it. They started in a week. They had it done within, I think, 2 to 3 weeks, and it was being shipped out. And it's
wow.
I think people really underestimate a lot of times the manufacturing and capabilities of obviously that whole area in Mexico. You really underestimate what they can actually do. And I personally, I'm a really big proprietor. I think that we should have more manufacturing either in US or Mexico or something like that, because we saw during COVID how shipments and lines and all of that getting completely cut off, especially overseas. That's because there's so much distance you have to cover there. And when all of that goes down, having the land mass to be able to get there is so crucial to being able to move stuff. I think I would love to see us, or like companies, whether it's NSI or Hasbro, whoever, I think, really having something that's more local, again, connected via the landmass would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're also decreasing the carbon cost. You're decreasing the lead time. You're decreasing all this other stuff.
Or just loss of, we've seen plenty of cargo ships just, lose full containers into the ocean or break in half or something crazy. We've all seen that. And it's just like, you really can cut down so much lead times on how, like I said, how long it takes to get there. And then it can get caught up in customs when it comes into, LA area and stuff like that. Like there's just a lot that can, that really gets in the way. And I've seen crazy stuff where, one company I used to follow when I was doing the old chiptune stuff and modding Game Boys was a company had ordered some voltmeters, and they were orange. And when they came in, customs seized them because Fluke had a patent on the color yellow.
God. Right.
Literally, that was it. It was on the color yellow. Yeah, I have a Fluke. I have the exact same one as you. So Fluke has a patent apparently, or their patent covers that color of yellow. And because this Chinese voltmeter that this shop was trying to carry, they said, well, that's close enough, and that impedes on their patent. And then they just seized all of it. And it's like that things like that, you can really just get rid of weird hiccups like that, which are out of your thing. That's what I'm saying. I personally would love to see stuff either, again, in the landmass of North America. Whether it's Canada, Mexico, America, it doesn't really matter to me. I really think there's a really untapped market to bring things here and kind of help to reduce a dependency on something like that while still maintaining, quality and even potentially reducing of costs in certain things. I really personally would love to see it, because I think there's a huge market for it.
Mm-hmm.
To patent a color.
It was something within their patent or something on their copyright and it just said yellow. It wasn't even the hex code of what yellow it was. It just said yellow.
Yellow.
Yeah, it was just yellow. I can even pull up the article because the owner of the company literally had to put out because he had a problem with patents on his circuit boards that they would do for this company.
Amazing.
And he said, we lost a whole order of voltmeters we were going to carry because of a patent that Fluke had on the color yellow.
That's funny though.
Yeah, it was interesting.
I kind of tried pushing the green more towards like a Ryobi green on these Siren blasters. But,
Interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Yeah.
Right.
I just like that color, and then Frank was like, I don't even want to be anywhere near Ryobi's color.
Yeah.
I don't need them coming after me.
Yeah. It didn't even used to be their color. Right, they just
they used to be a completely different color altogether.
When they changed their battery technology.
But
speaking of international manufacturing and shipping, Worker, and we might tie this back to the. I don't want to hang on it too much to the Siren Dart conversation, but Worker has been having some consistency issues with their darts. This got sort of a very short bit on the show, but to explain in a little more detail, the diameter has been inconsistent on a bunch of their dart products, And competitive players in particular who used to rely on those darts have been finding that they have to go single. I've seen a lot of competitive players at tournaments. They have their box of darts and they have an extra barrel, and they're dropping one dart through the barrel at a time to check the seal, and tossing like 2/3 of them into the garbage. Wow. And eventually that actually led a bunch of competitive players to switch to dart zone darts for a while. Just because it was like, even if, they could find a dart zone dart that they liked the performance on enough, even if it was less performance than the worker dart, they were consistent and realistic, and they were saving all this time, and they could always get what they needed out of it. Right. According to Out of Darts and potentially some other sources, newest shipments seem to be better. And it's always hard to tell because Worker as a company is sort of a black box. They don't really communicate with anybody. We're told even by a lot of the stores that sell Worker products that they just like order stuff and stuff shows up and they sell it and like they won't talk to anybody about anything. They just like, here's what we're making. You want it? You can buy it.
And then they just send you an undisclosed amount, whatever they feel like sending you. I've heard of this even from Phone Blast. Yes, they absolutely do.
And so I would be curious about your insights, Adam, having dealt with this to some degree. I know that I guess the darts weren't sort of your primary thing, but obviously they impact what you were doing quite a bit. And does this seem like I'm really curious about whether was there just like maybe an issue in the factory and it eventually just got fixed? Or like, do you think they actually would have responded to people complaining about it? Like, how common is it for things like this to just sort of like go wrong for a shipment and just like fix themselves eventually?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to say because like I was saying earlier, it can just be as simple as the worker who's running that machine that day changing some of their parameters and then putting them back to what they were when he got in,
right? Which
will make that batch just, you lose all your consistency.
Right.
It's just...
And a batch like that, if they make darts like that for a day, that could potentially be months of sales.
A lot. Yeah, I mean, a lot. I mean, literally an hour before I got on this with you guys, I was sending them, because we've been having people complain about the darts getting stuck in the barrel on the mauler on the lowest setting, and it's a dart issue. And it's like, it's just like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
It's just very frustrating. I'm taking pictures of this is the issue, and it's like not really a glue issue, but it's like, it's just something has happened with the production, and I can't tell them where in the production this is occurring, but it's occurring, right. And it's made it to our customers, and that sucks.
Right.
So, like we've got stuff in warehouses, like, that stuff's going to be going to customers for a little while. So I'm just trying to figure out, there's date codes on all the blasters. So I'm like, did a certain amount of darts go out with like just this date coded blaster, so we can try to pinpoint where they maybe all are, and then try to fix that issue before they make it to people's hands. So
right, because that's a key thing. If a change was made, it was probably made months ago. Like it's possible that people were like complain. They were like, oh, this batch of worker darts is really bad, and someone else was like, yeah, mine is really too, and worker like immediately was like, oh crap, and they changed something, and now we're just seeing the effects of it after all this time because of shipping lead times and communication and all that stuff.
100%. Yeah, it makes it difficult because it's really it's just hard to keep track of stuff and where stuff ends up.
Maybe workers should just move to Mexico, solve all the problems.
Just get rid of all those issues.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that I appreciate that insight on that, because I think people are definitely, like I said, like workers such a black box. Some of these companies are really kind of don't communicate, which, that's their prerogative to do, I guess. But it means that we're just sort of like left guessing, and people, competitive players rely on these products. and it's maybe not the market that they necessarily intended on getting involved with.
Yeah.
But that is who their audience is.
Right.
Really quickly, to close this out, I wanted to talk briefly about an event that's coming up. Do you ever make it to Nerf events, Adam? You ever been to like one of our like weekend 3-day things, or you've been to just like a local
I was
war?
I was supposed to go to the Epic Battle Blast, or Jared's Epic Battle Blast thing.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, but I didn't. I had a...
Well, because Siren was featured there, the last one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I ended up having a memorial to go to. So,
Oh, shoot.
but
I'm
no,
sorry.
I don't. And it's,
Yeah.
I wish I could, and I wish I had just had time, but I just really
It's so hard.
don't, between my wife and my 3 boys and work.
Well,
and,
and we talked. I won't. I will go as far as just to say your kids are younger than mine, and you do get to a
Yeah.
point where you just get to bring some of them with you, and
Yeah.
that's fun. So you can look forward to that, because I've been to Maryland Mayhem, and I'm going again this year, and I guess where you're at, you're not super close to a lot of stuff, but the format has sort of become, for a lot of these big events, it's like a 3-day thing, and you have the HVZ one day, and you have a competitive tournament another day, and you have like a convention and some like casual play on another day. And it is primarily an American format, I guess. Foam. What's the England convention called?
Foam Fest.
Foam Fest, I guess, has a similar layout as well. But Foam Invaders Challenge seems to be pretty much exporting that format to Singapore, which I think is really, really cool. TNT Events is in near Uno on the East Coast, in like the southern part of New England, and they
Is it
are
New Jersey
doing
or New England.
well. New Jersey is. I guess it's not technically in New England. Yeah, they're kind of Jersey, but they have sort of a wide range of territory they call their own. But they're collaborating with Nerf Singapore, and they're having. It's interesting because they're not doing an HVZ, which is a really common part of these things, but they are doing a CQB day. Because they have like indoor fields and like tracer rounds and all these kinds of things are much more common in their play settings. They're doing a Hold the Hill tournament, which is just a modification. I assume it's King of the Hill, but you have to be there for the time to count. As their competitive tournament, which, having just done the announcing stuff for a King of the Hill tournament, it's really interesting. Definitely is a very different format. I know one of the things that often happened at the King of the Hill tournament was like someone would slap the button, and then they could just keep anyone else from going near it and hold it from like cover for a long time. But like this forces you to actually be there and hold the space for a long time, which I think is really different. And then they're doing casual play. I don't know, like. I think it's exciting to see our event format exported to other spaces. Maybe we're getting all these products from overseas. Maybe we're finally giving something back. For once, it's America sending the culture out.
Yeah,
right.
kind of uncommon. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts about that. I just think it's cool. I just think it's kind of exciting. Like, we cover a lot of events. We've been seeing more mall events pop up, which I think is also really unique and exciting. But I think this is really a new thing to see our tournament, our like event format going out
I think
into
it's
the world.
Well, obviously, you have people like Piggy and Gavin Fuzzy who are part of that, coming out to the American events quite regularly, and they're competing in those events. More than likely, it's probably just one of a thing of like, hey, this is actually kind of cool. I want to take part of this and take that here with us because I like how it's set up. And I mean, obviously, if they got a chance to try it out, especially big players like I said, Gavin and Piggy going to these events and popping out. I'm pretty sure that was probably a big part of it. And these events have been going on for years. I think they've been switched around and the formats have been tweaked here and there. Like, oh, we shouldn't do it on this day. We should do it on this day. Oh, we should do this event on the first day and then do the next. Right. And there's been enough years, I think, to sort of fine tune it. So maybe
Mayhem
that's
just made
what
that.
it is.
Mayhem had just made that big switch.
Yeah.
To move their HVZ to the last day, right? Isn't that what we said? Anyway,
was it last day or was it?
I think they moved. I think they
switched.
Okay. No, they're not taking Thursday. They're just changing the order.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say anything about it because clearly I don't actually know.
I don't remember. So yeah,
I know that I'm going, but I don't know. I don't know what's happening. So I just know it's different. It changed.
Don't stick your foot in your mouth.
I'm not going to. I'm not going to. I know I'll know the details by the time I get there, but
people will get upset.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, someday we got to get you out to an event. I know it's tough when you got kids and you got family and you got work and everything, but like, it's an experience, man. It's something altogether different.
Yeah.
It changes. You realize, we were talking about, you hopped on Discord at one point in the past and you were like, nope. And, and there's, once you start going to in-person events, you start to realize what this community, the hobby community, actually is. It is that experience. The online thing is, it's a part of it. It's important. And I mean, we couldn't make this show without that online community
For sure.
to support us in so many different ways. And it's a good way to distribute information. But it really is about being together in person, whether it's like 5 people at a public park in the same town or whether it's about one of these big 3-day events. So someday we'll get you out to one, man.
I did actually one day. There was a guy here in Chicago, Kyle, and they have a small group and they play. And then I was going with my wife and my kids and I was like, yeah, I'll go check it out. And I don't know. Somehow something happened on the way there. It was like an hour away. We got kind of lost or turned around. By the time we got there, they were all loading up. But I did get to meet everyone there that day at least. And I mean, it was like a great group of people. And it, I've watched enough videos and stuff that, I mean, it looks like an absolute blast. When Alex and I first started Band Blasters, he was like, well, I need to go check one of these things out. So I don't even remember where he went, but he called me from it and was like, dude, this is awesome. He's like, these people are so cool. And like, people are already starting to know about Band Blasters and like blah, blah, blah. And so, I mean, I'm definitely going to do it. It's not like I'm avoiding it. I just doesn't seem like there's too much going on like real close to me. So it just makes it more difficult.
Yeah. Yep. Sometimes you got to travel, and that can be another layer of it being tough to make it out for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
But I will try.
Yep.
And I'm sure the further this goes, we will be there. I will be there.
That's true. You may wind up there for work.
Right.
Which would be cool to see Siren make an appearance at one of these events. I know that Dart Zone used to come to, they still do. They still sort of make appearances, but they used to like make appearances at and sponsor events and stuff. And I know that that's a little bit fraught, but it would be cool to see that connection happen. Maybe sometime.
Well, and I mean, I'd say we're always seem to be like very willing to help out the community and help out these events. So, if ever you have something coming up, you can always reach out to me, or I think you have already talked to Scott once or twice and be like, hey, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Ask for help and more than likely we'll get it.
I hope to see relationships between companies and hobby organizations continue to grow and be strong. Yeah. I think that I mean, we're like, talk all the time about how wild it is that a hobby of this size and this sort of like niche has companies like Out of Darts and Containment Crew and stuff that just exist in Silver Fox, right? That just exist just to serve it. And and then on top of that, have some degree of relationship with larger companies. I think it's totally wild.
Yeah.
Well, Adam, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us. It's been a blast. It's been enlightening. I feel like I have a much better picture of what's going on with Siren and with the industry at large. You probably don't have anything that you want to plug, but I always have to give you the opportunity if you do, other than just go buy a Blink, I guess.
Yeah, go buy a Blink, or buy something from my basement.
Oh yeah, there you go. Or yeah, well yeah, Band Blasters is a good thing to plug, right?
Well, and people keep like emailing me through Band Blasters, and they're like, "Hey, do you have a cage for this? Or do you have a cage for that yet?" And I've just like really dropped the ball lately of keeping up with, like what Dark Zone's put out or whatever.
You've been a little busy. Cut yourself some slack.
And then apparently, people are ordering the stripe cages because they fit right into the Dart Zone Maxim or whatever. And
Right.
I'm like, oh, well, that's convenient. I will just put that name on my website too.
Right.
But yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate you guys having me on. It was really great to talk to you. I enjoy doing like this kind of work. I just love like trying to fine tune stuff and problem solve, and so I think going forward, there'll be some impressive stuff coming down the pipeline.
Sweet.
Nice.
So
we'll look forward to it.
Yeah.
And as always, of course, File will be streaming. I don't think you have any stream breaks coming up other than maybe for the holidays.
Not really, but one of my streams, I am doing another charity event. It's called the 12 Days of Streaming. It's actually a charity event for the Starlight Children's Foundation. It's a Starlight. It does they get toys and things like that for kids who are in the hospital, and during obviously holidays, it's going to be harder. So they try to raise money. I'm part of a huge stream team actually on Twitch. Same times. I'm not really changing any times, but we're doing Friday and Saturday. It'll be, I believe, the 6th and the 7th of December is when I'm doing the charity. And actually, stuff that I'm giving away, I have a blaster from Grim Reaper 2458. And then I actually am going to give away the 2 influencer packs that I got from Xshot actually when they were doing exciting. The skins line. I have a smaller one and a larger one, and I'll be giving away those if we hit our goals. So
that's fun. Yeah,
just if you pop in either Friday and Saturday, I'll just be doing the giveaways on Saturday. So hey,
cool,
awesome,
awesome. And so listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. We will be back we are releasing this a week late, so in theory we'll be back in 1 week, which is unusual, for our second to last episode of the year. And yeah, check out our merch store, check out the Ko-Fi, blah blah blah, subscribe, like all that crud that we
all the social media stuff
have to do, I guess.
It was all my fault that they were late. Or that this was late.
Well, you just watch this episode. Now it's going to blow up, and we're going to be like, okay, well, so was it because we had the Siren designer on, or was it because we didn't release it the same week as the episode? Yeah. We'll have no way of knowing. So who knows? We'll see what happens.
All right. Well, good luck.
Great. Well, thanks so much. Have a great night, y'all. Thank you again, Adam.
Yeah.
Peace.
Thank you, guys. It was awesome.